New Jersey Governor Chris Christie, the head of Trump's presidential transition team. Governor, let's start with this new report that Trump had a billion-dollar loss in 1995 that could have meant that he paid no federal income taxes for years, maybe as much as 18 years. One, what does that say about him as a businessman? And what does that say about him failing to pitch in, like all the rest of us, to pay for our military and our roads and other services?
Well, first of all, Chris, what it shows is what an absolute mess the federal tax code is, and that's why Donald Trump is the person best positioned to fix it. There's no one who's shown more genius in their way to maneuver around the tax code and to rightfully use the laws to do that. And he's already promised in his tax plan to change many of these special interest loopholes and get rid of them so you don't have this kind of situation. And I think the worst part, Chris, is this is the tax code that people in America suffer under every day. And so it's an awful thing. Second thing is, on the New York Times report, fact is that even their own tax expert, after a big splashy headline, said there was nothing in there that was outside the law or outside the ordinary. And last point I want to make on this is this, Chris. You know, the early 1990s was a difficult time for lots of folks. We went into a recession, as I know you'll recall, and Donald Trump wrote the book, The Art of the Comeback. This is a guy who, when lots of businesses went out of business in the early 1990s, he fought and clawed back to build another fortune, to create tens of thousands of more jobs. And this is actually a very, very good story for Donald Trump.
Wait. You're saying it's a good story for Donald Trump that he failed to pay any federal income taxes? First of all, that he took a billion-dollar loss and that he failed to pay any federal income taxes for years? That's a good story?
Well, Chris, first of all, you don't know that he didn't pay any federal income taxes for years. All the story said was that that kind of loss can be used for up to 18 years. But if Mr. Trump made $600 million the next year, $600 million of that loss would be wiped out. So let's be precise about what it said. The New York Times does not have any information in that story that says Mr. Trump did not pay taxes. All they did was quote the law, which says if you have that kind of loss, that you can use that kind of loss to offset income for 18 years. What we have said is that Mr. Trump has paid millions and millions and millions of dollars in taxes, state and local taxes, property taxes, and federal income taxes over time. So the fact is,
if I may, sir.
But Chris, that's not what the report says. You can't come on TV this morning and say that Donald Trump did not pay taxes for years and years when that is not what the story says.
Well, in fact, the Trump campaign issued a statement last night that was a classic non-denial denial. Here's what he put up. Trump has a fiduciary responsibility to pay no more tax than legally required. It's, in effect, what he said in the first debate. If he paid no taxes, that makes him smart. I mean, I assume that if he had paid lots of taxes over those years, he'd have told us so.
Well, that's a big assumption on your part, given that the advice he's gotten, and by the way, this proves that the advice he's gotten from his lawyers and accountants is the right advice. Because if you're talking about a tax return from 1995, and all of you in the media have been saying, well, why don't you release the tax returns that aren't under audit? Well, they're all connected because of the Byzantine tax laws. And the genius of Donald Trump has been to make sure that he follows the law, which is exactly what he's done, and politically he has said that he's going to change these laws and that there's no one who's better suited to change these laws than someone like him who's been subjected to audit by the IRS year after year after year.
So just to sum this up, because I want to move on to other subjects, as a top Trump advisor, as the head of his presidential transition team, your reaction to the story in the Times today is no apologies.
Oh, for gosh sakes, no apologies for complying with the law. And by the way, taking a bow for the fact that he has said well before this story ever came out that we need to change the tax laws because they are harming Americans every day with their complexity and favoring people that they shouldn't favor. And Donald Trump has been the one person who, against his own personal interest, has said that he wants to change those tax laws, and as president he will. That's the kind of leadership America needs. And one last thing, Chris, you know, about the losses. The fact is that this is a guy who rebuilt his entire business empire after the recession in the early 1990s, wrote The Art of the Comeback. Let me tell you, America needs a comeback, and we need somebody like Donald Trump to lead that comeback.
All right. Here we are 6 days after the first debate, and Donald Trump is still talking about the former Miss Universe, Alicia Machado, and her weight gain. I want to put up the tweet that he wrote at 5:30 a.m. on Friday morning. Did crooked Hillary help disgusting, check out sex tape and past, Alicia M. become a U.S. citizen so she could use her in the debate? And here was Clinton's response.
Who gets up at 3 o'clock in the morning to engage in a Twitter attack against a former Miss Universe?
Governor, if you believe the polls, Trump's two biggest problems right now are questions about his temperament and the fact that he has a 20-point gender gap when it comes to women. So why on earth is he still talking about a beauty queen's weight?
You know, I have to tell you the truth, Chris. The stuff you guys focus on amazes me. At the same time, we have Hillary Clinton.
Wait a minute. He put out the tweet at 5:30 in the morning. We didn't.
Well, you know, Chris, lots of tweets get put out all the time by this candidate and by other candidates as well. Here's the thing, Chris. You look at what's happened here. You're talking about why is Donald Trump, after 6 days, tweeting about that? Why is Hillary Clinton still attacking, and we now have evidence of her attacking Bernie Sanders supporters, calling them people who live in their parents' basements? This is to add to the basket of deplorables that she's referred to Donald Trump's supporters as. This is a woman who, if you're not a part of the Northeast elite, she apparently has no use for you. Yet we're talking about a tweet about a beauty pageant. I mean, I got to tell you the truth. With ISIS on the rise, with the problems that we have with our economy and job creation, as a governor who's practical and has to worry about solving problems every day, I really can't believe I'm spending time on a Sunday morning program talking about it.
Well, I'm a little surprised that Donald Trump sent out the tweet. Let me ask you about something else that he said in an interview with the New York Times, which is that he's going to go after the Clintons' personal scandals. Here's what he told the Times. Hillary Clinton was married to the single greatest abuser of women in the history of politics. Hillary was an enabler, and she attacked the women who Bill Clinton mistreated afterward. Governor, that's what he was telling the New York Times on Friday. He wasn't talking about ISIS, wasn't talking about taxes. He was talking about the way the Clintons treated women.
Listen, you saw Hillary Clinton on the debate stage talking about these very issues, and you saw Hillary Clinton about women, and you saw Hillary Clinton on the debate stage essentially accuse Donald Trump of being a racist. Yet I don't see any outrage from the mainstream media about that. The fact is that Donald Trump's entire life has been towards making sure that everyone in America has an opportunity at a great job. Everybody in America has an opportunity to build wealth. That's what he's been about during his career. Yet you have Mrs. Clinton on stage talking about and essentially saying that Donald Trump was a racist. And yet we don't have any outrage about that. But every time there's an utterance that somehow offends the Northeastern liberal elite, we have outrage towards Donald Trump. Where's the outrage towards Hillary Clinton calling a successful businessman and the Republican nominee for president a racist? I mean, you know, Chris, there's got to be some fair play here. And I haven't seen it. And I'm not going to jump to every piece of bait that people throw up when nobody is spending time talking about the outrageous things Hillary Clinton said on that debate stage less than a week ago.
Governor, you were you were involved in preparing Trump for the first debate, and afterwards, seven unnamed campaign advisors talked to the New York Times about the fact that they think that Trump did not prepare adequately for the debate. Let me put up some of their criticisms. They say Trump campaigned instead of rehearsing. There were too many people on his prep team, and Trump found it, quote, hard to focus. Will he prepare any differently from the second debate? And I guess most importantly, in this regard of just preparation, is he going to actually hold mock debates this time?
Listen, I love when seven unnamed sources are talking about things. You know what I'm going to be willing to guarantee you, Chris, is that, and none of those seven unnamed people were in the room during debate prep. And they speak most of the time because they're jealous that they weren't in the room. You know how this game is played. I love Monday morning quarterbacks. I can guarantee you that most of those, if not all of them, have never been on a stage and debated under that level of pressure and scrutiny. I have, and I can tell you this. Donald Trump prepared well for his debate the last time, and he will decide how he prepares for the debate on Sunday night.
All right, let's turn to your day job as governor of New Jersey and some real things. And I want to talk to you, first of all, about that terrible commuter train crash in Hoboken this week that killed one person and injured more than 100. What's the latest on the investigation? Can you tell us how fast the train was going and why it didn't break?
Chris, we don't know the answer to that question yet. The NTSB has taken over the investigation, as is the normal course. The State Attorney General's office is cooperating with the NTSB and providing resources to them. Because of the damage inside of the Hoboken train terminal, which, Chris, I know you know that terminal. It's a historic building. It's over 100 years old. Because of the damage, they have not yet been able to access all of the train cars, and so we can't get all the information we need yet. I'd also caution that the NTSB inspector herself, when she came on Friday, said that this was going to be at least 7 to 10 days before they had anything to say. I think it's safe to say, as I've said before and Governor Cuomo has said, that the train came into the station too fast. We don't know why that is. We don't know if it was error by the engineer, whether there was a medical emergency with the engineer, which caused him to lose control, or whether there was some other type of mechanical failure. But let's take a deep breath. Let's let the NTSB, who does a great job on this stuff, do their work. And we have crews there right now removing debris to make it possible for them to be able to access the train cars, the recorders, and all the information on the train. And we'll get to the bottom of this. As I said to the people of New Jersey last week, this is an awful tragedy, but it's one where I remember my time as a prosecutor. You don't jump to conclusions. You let the facts lead you to the appropriate conclusions.
Governor,
and we'll participate with the NTSB in every way on that.
Governor, I've got to ask you about one last question, and that is that while all of this is going on, that two of your former aides are on trial for their alleged role in BRIDGEGATE, allegedly shutting down lanes leading to the George Washington Bridge to punish a Democratic mayor who refused to back your re-election. David Wildstein, another of your former advisors who's pleaded guilty, says that at this meeting, and we got a couple of pictures up on the screen, at a 9/11 event in 2013, during the lane closures, that you and he and one of the defendants were joking about the lane closures. Your response to this, sir?
Chris, nothing that's happened in that courtroom has proven anything different than what I said on January 9th of 2014, nearly 3 years ago, which is that I knew nothing about these lane realignments either prior to or during their occurrence, that I had no role in authorizing them, that I had no role in anything regarding these lane closures. And so the fact is that there's going to be all kinds of stuff that's said up in a courtroom, especially by someone who has already pled guilty to a crime. And so I'm not going to comment beyond that, except to repeat what I said before, that we've now had 3 investigations, by 2 of them led by partisan Democratic appointees, and none of them have come to any conclusion other than that I had no role, no knowledge, and no participation in this. And so we'll let the trial go. We'll let the jury make determinations as to the people who are on trial. And when it's over, there'll be more I'll be able to say.
Governor Christie, thank you. Thanks for your time today, sir. Always good to talk with you.
Chris, always great to be on your program. Have a great Sunday.
Thank you.